Hey everyone, Midits here. The Nintendo Switch is a pretty good console. It has lasted for over 7 years now, without a successor though, and it's starting to finally seem that the time of it being the current console is starting to come to a close. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about features, games, and improvements that I would love to see with the Switch 2. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and let's jump straight into this. One thing that absolutely everybody wants from the Switch 2, and what we are basically guaranteed to get, is a more powerful console. For years now, there have been complaints about how the Switch has been technologically behind in comparison to the competition, most notably with how third-party games look on the console. I definitely agree with this sentiment in some parts. My Switch practically sounds like it's gasping for breath whenever I turn it on for too long, and while I never experienced this too much, we really should not have to be dealing with issues of choppy FPS during games. But there is one thing I slightly disagree with, and that is graphics. While I would love to see an improvement, I do not think it has to be something vast like being on the level of the PS5 or the Xbox Series X or S. Especially since, if it were more along the lines of the PS4 or Xbox One, it would still look really good since we kind of reached a plateau in graphics with those consoles. Plus, not only would super powerful graphics affect the battery life of the Switch 2, but it would also make the console far more expensive to produce and therefore to buy. And if Nintendo plans on being smart, they are not going to drastically increase the price just so that the games look a little bit better. Just having the Switch 2 run better is really all I ask for. Well, that and updates for older games that allow them to run better. I don't have a ton to say about this next part, but this is practically mandatory to mention. Nintendo Switch Joy-Con drift is an absolute disaster. While this is an inconsistent problem across Nintendo Switch users, with some dealing with it and others not, this has been a long-running problem which I had while using my Switch. There are of course methods you can use to fix Switch drift, but it really shouldn't have been this big of a problem in the first place. Hopefully, since it has been 7 years, Nintendo has figured out a way to fix this problem, and we can get better controllers with Joy-Con drift being left in the past. Now, a little while ago, I made a video with my friends ranking every video game console. Shameless plug out of the way. I rate the Switch very highly, but I did cite some problems with it. One thing I mentioned is the lack of customization with the Switch, which kind of leaves the Switch with a lot less of that classic fun Nintendo charm. The only options you have are white and black, and it almost feels as if there were plans for more, since there's a section in the setting for themes. But instead of the many unique themes that the 3DS had, seriously, look at all of these. It is just a depressingly minuscule list of 2 options. If we were to have customizable options like with 3DS, it would really help to make the Switch 2 feel more personalized and alive. Another thing from previous consoles that I would love to see is more content outside of just the games. I would love to see the comeback of pre-installed apps like what was on the Wii, Wii U, DS, and 3DS. Stuff such as Flipnote, Street Pass, Miiverse, and basically the entirety of the Wii channels were incredible features that were fun to use in between gaming sessions, or if you just weren't in the mood to play any games and rather wanted to mess around. It is also very odd seeing how Netflix and a functioning web browser were available on the Wii U, but Netflix isn't on the Switch, and you have to change your DNS settings to use a very bare bones browser. I maybe understand stuff like the web browser being gone, since it could lead to hacking, and I'm pretty sure that PlayStation also doesn't have a fully functional web browser, but stuff like Netflix being gone doesn't really make that much sense. While Nintendo's main focus has always been making great games, and I do hope that it continues to be the case, these additions would add so much to the console experience. Recently, it was announced that the Switch successor would be backwards compatible with the original Switch, which is easily a great decision on Nintendo's behalf. But of course, there still is the issue being that the massive amount of Nintendo's library is still not available after all these years. So you either have to play them using the original console, or for legal reasons, this part of the video has been removed. It is a huge shame, since there are so many incredible games that I, along with many other people, desperately want to play. And while Nintendo Switch Online has offered up some older games, it feels a lot smaller compared to prior console selections, especially since you can only get them with Nintendo Switch Online, and some of them are still locked behind the expansion pack. While in my perfect dream world, we would see the return of Virtual Console, that is incredibly unlikely to happen. Not just Nintendo, but the entire gaming industry has changed since the times of the Wii U and Wii. Making older games accessible via subscription is significantly more financially beneficial for the company, even if, unfortunately, us the consumer gets the short end of the stick. So, at the very least, I wish Nintendo would add the other systems such as the GameCube, Wii, Wii U, DS, and 3DS to Switch Online. And while this part is really hopeful, I would wish that some of the current expansion pack content would be moved to the base Switch Online, so that's a bit more worthwhile. I honestly still do find it a shame though, how both Nintendo 64 and Game Boy Advance games are hidden behind a more expensive subscription. Now, of course, you can't have a new Nintendo console without some new games. So I want to go over some games that I think are very likely to be announced for the Switch 2, and also what I'm hoping for. I'm just going to spat out small ideas. I'm not going to go into any huge details though. In the case of Zelda, even if the next game is smaller in scope in comparison to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I think that's going to be a while before we get a new 3D Zelda game, and it's probably going to be a lot farther into the lifespan of the Switch 2. So I think it would be cool to see another game in the style of classic Zelda, although it would probably take some time for a game like that to come out, since we got Echoes of Wisdom this year. I think the Mario franchise is at an interesting point right now, since it feels almost inevitable that we are going to get a new 3D Mario game soon, even if nothing has been announced. It has been just such a long time since Mario Odyssey was released that there's no way they haven't been planning something in this time. Will the next 3D Mario game be an Odyssey sequel? Honestly, I kinda doubt it. If there was a Mario Odyssey 2 planned, it likely would have come out by this point, especially since you got a whole new 3D Zelda, and that franchise is practically infamous at this point for how much time is put into development. It is much more likely that we're going to get a completely new game with original mechanics that make it stand out. Pokemon is not only one of my favorite franchises, but it's also the most financially successful franchise of all time. But it has been in a bit of an odd state recently. The Switch era mainline Pokemon games feel like they go completely against Nintendo's game development philosophy of staying in development however long is necessary until the game is in the best state to be released. Meanwhile, at Game Freak, they decided to keep the same development philosophy they had during the Game Boy years, despite the games becoming so much larger. This has led to quite a few of their games coming out with a lot of problems, and even the better Pokemon games on the Switch feeling a tad bit rushed. While I would love to see the mainline Pokemon games slow down, I doubt that it would happen. Legends EA is coming out this year, and there's no way that Game Freak is not only going to go more than 4 years without a new generation of Pokemon, but also miss out on a new generation during Pokemon's 30th anniversary. So I guess the best thing I could hope for with future Pokemon installments is that Game Freak gets help from Nintendo or other development teams in their circle, and that they can maybe slow down some after Generation 10. Also, if Legends ZA turns out to be as good as Legends Arceus or better, I would love to continue seeing more games with that formula. Hopefully with this new console, we can get a new Mario Kart, because Mario Kart 8 at this point is older than some of the people playing on the Switch. Another big franchise that people are going to start having their eyes on more and more again is Smash Bros. While Ultimate was a massive game, including every fighter from the series, I highly doubt that it's going to be the end of the franchise. I feel pretty unsure about how the character selection is going to be, especially with so many non-Nintendo representatives being added in Ultimate. Either way, it's going to be a great time whenever the next game gets announced, and I really hope that we get to feel the same kind of hype from the Smash Ultimate character reveals. To be honest, it's kind of hard to think of some of the things Nintendo might do in the future, since they're still releasing quite a few games for the original Switch. So if we were to get new games for the next console, it probably wouldn't be for a while. So what I probably expect is that one really big game, like maybe a new 3D Mario comes out at the start of the console, and then more of the franchises that we expect to see again are going to be coming out a bit later. On the opposite side though, there have been some franchises that have not had a new release in a while. While F-Zero 99 was great, since it shows that Nintendo even remembers that the franchise exists, it does not compare to getting an entirely new game. It has been a while since we last had a Star Fox game, and it has been even longer since we had a Punch-Out game. I certainly believe that series such as these could be done justice if they are brought back for another entry. While I could go on and on talking about new entries and franchises that I would like to see, another thing that I believe is important for the Switch 2 is making games that people won't expect. Who knows, maybe we can get some new IPs with staying power during the time of the next console. I'm excited for the Switch 2. We're definitely going to be seeing a lot of great and big games in the upcoming years, and we will hopefully reach a point where the power of the console is not as big of a point of criticism. There is one final thing I need to say though. Bring back Tomodachi Life, please, Nintendo. I'm begging you. You can't keep ignoring like this, Nintendo. Please. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out some other content, and if you really did, subscribe. That's gonna be it for now, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.